welcome to News 6. I'm Shane Lockoff. Today's show is presented by Mrs. Sharon Peck and Mr. Snyder's 6th grade class from Wayne Trace Elementary in Payne, Ohio. In today's program, we'll show some very important people in our community. Our first story shows us how sweet it is. Jenna tells us about it.
Beginning with just a few hives, Benjamin Stoller's Honey started in 1925. Amy Sutton talked to Dara Stoller about his family business.
How did Stoller Honey begin?
It began with my father back in the 1920s. I was reading an old newspaper article that was written by the Journal Gazette just a few years ago. Just this afternoon it said that my dad started in 1920, and by 1925 he had 100 and some hives of bees. So that goes back quite a few years.
Where are most of your bees kept?
At the present time, we have most of our bees in this area, Amy, around 800 hives. We have some in central Ohio, around Columbus. We have around 300 in southern Wisconsin. We have about 800 in Illinois. Then we have some west of Fort Wayne in Indiana. We have about 3,000 hives altogether.
What all do you do with the honey here at Stoller's?
Well, all that we produce, we process and sell either in bulk, large containers such as 660-pound barrels. We have a good bakery account. We sell out of Honey to Brown's Bakery just at Defiance. And we have other accounts that take glass, and then we buy a lot more honey we produce ourselves.
How is the honey processed?
Well, it's quite a lengthy process. We have to get it out of the barrels. We run it down through the ovens, and it goes in tanks downstairs in the basement. And from there, it's run through quite a series of heating and cooling and filtering, and it takes 24 hours before it's ready to bottle normally.
Thank you for joining us on News 6.
Well, it's a real pleasure to be part of News 6, and I sure appreciate you coming, and I'm glad we could work with you on your class project. Good luck in the future.
Stoller has become the largest and oldest honey farm in the Midwestern United States. Our next important person gives us some interesting facts about our area.
Leo Davis knows a lot about Paulding County. He is president of the John Paulding Historical Society, and Carrie Moore talked to him about our area.
How did the John Paulding Historical Society begin?
The society was an outgrowth of the bicentennial celebration that the whole country celebrated in 1976 and 77. And those people who were most intimately associated with that celebration in Paulding County were reluctant to disband, and so we organized the John Paulding Historical Society in January of 1978.
Do all the items come from Paulding County only?
Not all of them come exclusively from Paulding County. If they represent the history of the area, they're acceptable.
Are they usually donated?
Nearly always. We have very few items that we have purchased. The only things we have bought are building materials or display units, not the display items.
What types of items are in the building?
Well, we have probably more items that depict life in Paulding County about 100 years ago, or as recently as 1930.
What is the oldest display?
Well, there's no contest as far as that goes. We have fossils from the Portland cement pit that we estimate are 350 million years old.
What seems to interest people the most?
I think the thing most people find of interest is a plat map of Paulding County for 1878. People find their family farms here, and this seems to be of great interest to them.
Thanks for joining us on News 6.
Well, you're quite welcome, and we're pleased at this opportunity to tell others about our effort here.
Our next important community leader specializes in historical facts of our country. Bobby will give us the details.
Reverend Jackie Lay has many interests, but loves history, especially the Civil War and Roman era. Eddie interviewed him about his fascinating collection of history.
You become interested in this hobby?
Well, I became interested in the study of Roman history, Eddie, in the 6th grade, the same grade you are now. I was in the school system of Cincinnati, Ohio, and had ancient history and got caught up. That was also in the mid-50s, 1950s, which was a time when a lot of Hollywood epics was out, like Quo Vadis and some of the great The Robe and other great movies were being made, and Helen of Troy, and I got caught up in ancient history. But I actually began collecting these figures in 1974 when I moved to a parish called Lynchburg, Ohio. It was when I really started the small figures. The larger ones I began about 1973.
What are the times in history that interested you the most?
My favorite time of history to study is 100 BC to 100 AD.
What is the price range of the figures you buy?
Now you've asked a question that gets very tricky. When I started in 1973 and 74, if I may, you could take 4 of these, you could take 12 of these small figures. By the way, Eddie, these are 1-inch high figures, or 25 millimeter. You could take 12 of these for $3. Now, in most places, you can only get 3 figures for $3. If I was starting today to build this hobby, I would not be able to complete the hobby with as much completeness as I have now. All figures in modeling are based upon a 6-foot-high man, even though the ancient Romans weren't that tall. So if you're 6 foot high, Ed, and you want to see what happens to you after you've been shrunk 70-some times, that's your size there, and that's all you're going to be.
In our next story, Scott will tell us about another important person who likes working with wood.
Rick Moore has turned a hobby into a business. He makes clocks out of wood. He talked to Shane Begley about this interesting craft.
How did you get started with woodworking?
I got started in woodworking about 4 years ago. I got interested in making a clock for myself. And I made a clock, and another person has saw it and decided he'd like to have one, so I made him one. And from there, it's been a lot of clocks making.
What types of wood do you use?
Well, I use pine most of the times, white pine, although I have used walnut and cypress, with, as you can see, a few cypress clocks here.
What is the most unusual clock you were asked to make?
I think it would be one that was the shape of Michigan. It was had the Upper Peninsula and everything. Took a long time to do, and it was the most difficult one.
What is the most expensive clock you ever made?
I think the most expensive one was the one I made for a tavern uptown Payne, Ohio here. It's called Club 49. It had their insignia on it, and it was made with glitter, gold and red glitter, and years ago they used to have a sign in there that said Club 49, and it was made just like that.
Mr. Moore will be successful with this business adventure, and we wish him luck.
Thank you for joining us. Be here next week when students from Republic Elementary in Republic, Ohio will present News 6. Have a nice week.